From WXXI News, this is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. Our connection this hour was made a couple of months ago when Michelle Obama was responding to a question about whether she would consider running for president. She remains one of the most popular Democrats in the country, but she responded essentially, no way, and not in small part because she had come to doubt whether this country would ever elect a woman after the elections of 2016 and 2024. Weeks later, talking to podcaster Alex Cooper, Obama clarified her remarks, but they had already sparked a fire of discussion. The Democratic Party is likely to head into 2028 with a lot of electoral advantages. A historically unpopular president from the opposite party who has served 2 terms, for starters. But the party is nowhere close to settled on who its nominee should be. It's a wide open field. And there are a number of Democratic women who could lead the ticket. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer has explored a run for the White House. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is being courted by some party activists and leaders. Former Vice President Kamala Harris says she's considering another campaign. And there are other glass ceilings that could be broken. There are a couple of Jewish candidates who could be the first Jewish person to become president in the field for the Democrats. But will the party decide it's too risky to try to break a glass ceiling? Will they focus on identity in the same way that Vice President Harris explained her decision not to choose Pete Buttigieg as her running mate? Harris wrote in her book that the former transportation secretary was her top choice. But she said that asking the country to vote for a black woman was already a lot. Asking them to vote for a gay man was a bridge too far for Vice President Harris. And so she went with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Our guests will have a lot to say about this, and let me welcome them now. Lystra McCoy is a Monroe County legislator from District Number 18. Welcome, legislator. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you too, Evan. Thanks for having me on.
Kelly Cheatle is an artist and a community organizer. Welcome to you.
Hi, everybody.
Nice to have you here. And later this hour, we're going to be joined by Jerri Lynn Sparks, who's a former congressional press secretary. So let's start by listening to some of the comments that sparked some of this, if we could. I think can we do that? Yeah. Okay. So the first one is Michelle Obama. This is kind of what sparked the initial discussion about identity and whether the country is ready for a woman. Let's listen.
Well, as we saw in this past election, sadly, we ain't ready. That's why I'm like, don't even look at me about running, because you all are lying. You're not ready for a woman. You are not. So don't waste my time. You know, we got a lot of growing up to do. And there's still, sadly, a lot of men who do not feel like they can be led by a woman, and we saw it.
Okay, so that you can understand the passion there. Mm-hmm. Now let's listen to Michelle Obama talking to podcaster Alex Cooper. And, I think clarifying some of those remarks.
That statement was, there was the humor of it, like, stop looking at me, right? So that it's also my wry humor. It's like, come on, people.
As a country, what do we need to do to be ready?
Let's not be mad because I made the statement. Let's look at the fact that we've had 2 really qualified female candidates. One who was First Lady, Secretary of State, well-educated, my husband beat her, right? People were more comfortable with him as a newcomer, right? And now we just had the former vice president. We've had qualified women, and they just, again, if they're not perfect and they don't cross every T and dot every I, there's a falling shortness that is happening that I'd say, look, well, why can't we talk about that?
All right, Legislator McCoy, what do you hear there? What comes to mind when you hear Michelle Obama really challenging whether this country would elect a woman?
Well, I understand what she's saying, understand where she's coming from, and I see where she came back and she kind of clarified what she was talking about. But I agree with her. I agree that the country, when Kamala lost, we got to the point where we were like, okay, Trump is back in. Now that Trump is back in, we see the damage that has been done with his presidency. Now people are ready. At one point I was like, I don't know if people are ready for anyone besides a white male at one point. Now we had Obama. But now people have been woken up, we'll say, and they now have the ability to see that being indecisive about who is leading them and who is leading their country, or just being flippant about who is leading their country, is not going to lead us down the path of prosperity. And we see that, and we saw the people that were out at the No Kings rally this past weekend, the passion that is out there. People are now awake and they are ready. They're ready for a competent leader.
A competent leader, no matter who that person is?
Correct.
You think this country is more likely in 2028 to elect a non-white male candidate?
I absolutely do. I absolutely do. It's competence. We need someone that it's competent to lead this country back to where we were. We were one of the top countries financially that came out of COVID. It's been ruined since then. Our relationships internationally have been ruined since then. It is about a competent leader being in the White House and bringing America back to who we were, the melting pot that we are, but that is still a strong leader within the world.
Kelly, what hits your ears when you hear the former First Lady there talking the way she did on those various settings there?
So, at first you have your gut reaction, but then, I want to think about context. So, like, the First Lady is being interviewed about, this concept of, whether or not she should run. First of all, I'm not a big fan of dynasties. So just because somebody has a name and name recognition does not, she is remarkably qualified. She's a lawyer. She's brilliant. I'm not going to doubt her skills. But this was an interview about a book that she was releasing.
So you don't like the premise of the question for her?
I think that, well, no, not that I don't like the premise of the question for her, but like and maybe this speaks to the challenge that we have with female candidates. Her statement is being hyper-analyzed, and yet the president of the United States can say that we don't have money for Medicare because we have to have money for a war.
And he said we don't have money for daycare.
Why aren't we having a discussion about that?
Oh, yeah, I hear that, and we do plan to.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I
sure
suspect every ad in the country that run by Democrats in the fall may have that clip.
I hope they do. And some of this also speaks to the system, like to reduce the losses of Hillary Clinton and
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris, thank you. Word recall sometimes is difficult. To just their gender is oversimplification. I think there were other factors involved in their losses that, if we don't discuss those factors, we're doing ourselves a disservice, and we're doing future candidates a disservice, because, like, were those candidates? Poor Kamala got kind of dumped in midway during the process. It didn't go through the formal primary process that would have kind of brought up more of these conversations, introduced her more to the country, yada, yada. We need to have a way for the American public to vet their candidates beyond sound bites. And it's really difficult in this world where I think of like the first video that showed on MTV. Video killed the radio star. Mm-hmm. You have people who are incredibly talented, but because they didn't fit this new medium, we lost them. Like, we didn't listen to them anymore because they didn't look the part. What presidents are we missing because they don't look the part? Are they the sound bites that they say that are cogent aren't selected? So
when you say we shouldn't just look at gender, that there's other factors involved. Mm-hmm. First of all, I think that's correct, but I also curious to know. So let's take Hillary Clinton. Mm-hmm. Secretary Clinton runs in 2016. Mm-hmm. Do you think she lost because she was a woman?
I'm not necessarily capable of that sort of meta-analysis of like what particular reasons. I have a gut reaction. I don't think that she connected to middle America, the broad spectrum of America. I think she missed, back in the day, I was a big fan of Bernie, mm-hmm. still am. He was speaking to the needs of the average American person. Mm-hmm. He was speaking to Trump voters. And had he had the opportunity, I think he would have been able to win over many of those people because he was speaking to the economic hurt. He was speaking to the difficulty of keeping food on the table, for health care, for all of these things that are bread and butter issues. And it's difficult because, how do you have a deep policy discussion about why you don't just go and decide to attack Iran with folks who are worried about how they're going to feed their kids? Like that is an existential threat, causing a new war, but that's so beyond the battle that they're fighting at home to just stay alive.
Yeah, and so I think part of how I think about just taking 2016 is there's a school of thought that says someone with exactly Hillary Clinton's resume, but a man instead of a woman, wins that election. And I can understand that. There's no way to prove, to your point, exactly how many voters would have flipped a vote or dug in because it was a woman. We'll never know that. The election in 2016 were so close, 20,000 votes in Wisconsin, 10,000 votes in a couple states like that could have flipped it, that it's easy to imagine that might have been a tipping point. But what I'm hearing from you is don't lose sight of the fact that you think criticisms of her actual campaign, her policy, her approach to Americans is also fair.
Absolutely. I would like to get beyond the conversation of gender.
Just identity. Yeah.
And identity does influence how you move in the world and how other people move with you. So that's not what it. But give the American people some credit. If you give them a chance to actually hear from a candidate, to actually have policies looked at and talked about instead of just reduced to sound bites. I've sat there and watched press conferences with the president from start to finish. And then I will listen to a news broadcast that picks out the 2 times that he was able to string words together cogently and be like, did you guys watch the same press conference that I did? Why is no one telling the emperor he has no clothes? So for as much as this is about the candidate, it's also about the way in which the information about the candidates is distributed to the American people.
Yeah, also I think fair. Legislator McCoy, when it comes to 2024, is it your feeling that someone with Kamala Harris's resume, but a man instead of a woman, everything else being the same, does that candidate get elected?
Yeah, absolutely.
You think so?
Yes, and I think that is exactly why she picked Tim to be her VP candidate, because he spoke to that part of the country where they couldn't deal with having her as the leader of the free country.
He was supposed to speak to that part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
He started to.
Yeah,
he did.
I think he certainly attempted to. Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. And then
what I'm saying is I don't know how many votes Tim Walz flipped, but I understand the purpose of him on the ticket.
Yeah, exactly. I do appreciate that they did go out into Middle America, as you brought up. I believe that's a part of America, even rural areas here in Western New York, that's forgotten by the Democrats or taken for granted by the Democratic Party. They're out there. They want to hear from you. They also have connections with the struggles that people in inner cities have. So bring the message out there. Bring that message to Middle America. As a human being, it doesn't, again, I go back to, it doesn't have to be a male, a female, gay, straight, whatever. Just as a human being, speaking to them as a human being, letting them know, hey, here's what's going on. Here are my policies to fix what you have going on, and being very clear in that message.
I think part of why we're having this conversation that might in some ways annoy people, which I'm going to say, it kind of annoys me.
Yeah.
That we're still kind of doing this.
Agree.
The reason I think it matters is a couple of points here. Number one, having covered a lot of elections, every election is the biggest election of our lifetimes, but now it sort of feels like it kind of really is all the time. There's a lot riding on elections.
Correct.
And there always was, but it feels especially really, really sort of on the precipice now. And then you even have people like Kamala Harris in her book saying, I couldn't really go with Pete. Like, she wanted to pick Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah.
She questioned whether the country would put a gay person into the White House. So this question of identity and glass ceilings is not just sort of construction of the media. I mean, like, there are candidates themselves. The vice president herself was wondering, and it held her back. You look like you're questioning there, Kelly. Go ahead.
I question everything. That's the joy of being an artist. No, I think this whole idea of, are we ready for a female candidate? Are we if we wait until we are ready, it will never happen. Like, if I waited to be ready to be a parent, there would be 4 incredible young adults that would not exist.
That's the truest thing I've ever heard.
This idea that,
so
like,
true.
I think, like, if I asked you a year and a half ago, can New York have a socialist mayor, an openly socialist mayor, you would look at me like I had 6 heads.
New York City, I think I would have said, that probably could hamstring him, but that's where you'd win if you were.
Okay, so could we have a woman president, Evan?
Oh, do I think we can? Yes.
Okay, so, like, I think that makes sense to me. Like,
do I think misogyny affects vote totals? I'm with legislator McCoy. I think, yes, it's impossible to measure how many.
Yes.
Right.
Do I think Pete Buttigieg could get elected as a gay person? Yes. Do I think it would be harder because he's gay? Yes. Do I think Josh Shapiro could get elected, or John Ossoff as a Jewish person? Yes. Do I think it will be harder? In some ways, yes, and in some ways, maybe no. I don't know.
So maybe that's more of the question, is like, what are the privileges of straight white maleness that give them a pass? Like, why are we giving the president a pass for being incapacitated and not able to do his job? Like, if that were Kamala, and Kamala were at the position, and...
Are we talking about Biden or Trump now? We're talking about Trump?
Trump.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
Honestly, you could probably even say the same thing about Biden. Like, there is... And also, like, you have to factor in, how does this impact, or how is this impacted by the power structures that exist? Like, who is best served? Yeah, if you want to.
I was going to say, it's the power structure. It's the handshakes. It's who's in the room, who makes those decisions, right? And then it's those people taking a look around that room, seeing who's there, seeing who's not there, and are they willing to do something about that?
So, you mentioned that you do think now, though, that what held Kamala Harris back, the votes that didn't go to her because of gender specifically,
mm-hmm.
you think that can be overcome in 2028?
I do.
So what's changed to make? Here's why, partially why I ask, and partially why I still think this is a really relevant conversation.
Right.
Well, we have an overt movement
right
on the far right that used to be sort of fringy and laughed at,
mm-hmm.
that is now very popular among young men. Again,
Yeah.
it may not be mainstream, but it is not in the fringe. The sort of the male influencer culture, and they talk openly about how women are to blame for everything, and
Who's funding them?
Who's funding them?
Yes,
it's a good question.
That part.
Certainly people like Elon Musk, people like Peter Thiel.
So are they popular, or are they well funded and well broadcasted?
Oh, okay, so that's a chicken and egg thing, but I do think the popularity is real, in that they have a lot of young teens and 20-something males who do look up to figures who talk about women in ways that were way out of bounds 10 years ago. And so I don't know how much more ascendant that could be, if that will always be a single digit chunk of the electorate, or it's like, are we going back there? I don't know. I mean, it feels really weird.
It does feel weird. The
feels
whole
really
trad wife thing, like, it feels totally weird.
It feels.
But I think
I feel like so naive. That it even feels weird, because Kelly's probably like, I told you.
Right now.
Come on, Kelly.
I told you. So. I mean, like, so for me, if we all had really solid American history teachers or world history teachers back in the day who could teach us not a very narrow curriculum, we would see this is the same song with different instruments. This is the same thing that empires have done throughout history. What do you do when you want to stay in power? You divide the people. How do you divide the people? You make someone the other.
That's right.
You hearken back to, like, traditional values. You take women out of the position of power and you put them back into the home. I have no problem if someone wants to be making cornflakes at 2:00 in the morning so that their family has them fresh, if that's their choice. but don't pretend that trad wife material that's on Facebook and Instagram and whatever isn't generated by a staff of 50 people to make it look like they're like we are marketing the same way we are marketing subpar candidates to maintain the power structure. We are marketing and manufacturing this content to brainwash our young adults into thinking that it's acceptable to be a misogynist. It's not acceptable. And if mom and dad are working 3 jobs and they're not home to provide guidance to their kid and say, whoa, that's totally not cool for you to speak to someone like that, they're relying upon you to, like, we're creating this like self-imploding nonsense that's just going to send us all into like work camps.
Yeah, kids are growing up online. They're being raised sort of by online values in many ways. So that's how, to your point about the staff of people and the money that backs this stuff, that's one thing. But if it didn't have any purchase, then they would fund something else. But it's popular with some people. I mean, like young men. Go ahead.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Because again, it's been marketed appropriately. And I just saw, I forgot the show on Netflix that talked about the young men and the influencers. I had no idea. I'm like you, Evan. I had no idea all of this was going on. And it's pretty disgusting.
The Manosphere documentary,
yeah,
did you
Manosphere,
see?
Yeah,
I'll
that's
have
what
to
I'm
watch
talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you'll have to watch it.
yeah.
It was pretty incredible.
Your brain might ooze out your ears by the end of it, just like mine did. But it's still, I mean, it's worth knowing what's out there, right?
That part. It's worth knowing. It's worth knowing what the next generation is really into, what they're grabbing onto. And Kelly, to your point, it's being funded. I totally agree that it's being funded, but just like they can be funded, we can also fund the good.
Aha. Well, and also, I mean, like the other piece of this is, so I'm my generation. So I was born in 1977. So you can do the math. I was told, I could be anything. I could do anything.
Yeah.
No one ever told me you might not want to do all the things at once. So there is real burnout of like, oh crap, I thought I could have a job, like a career and kids and this and that and that. And then you're realizing you can't have all of these things. You have to choose because we aren't, giving people the resources they need. We're not paying people a living wage. Like it's not possible to have all of the things in your sanity. So that sort of aspirational existence of like, I just wake up in the morning and I just take care of my kids and everything's lovely. We're erasing the parts where like, in the frontiers days, there were bears that would come and like destroy, like, so we're painting this imaginary escapism that is tempting because life is not working. So why if I'm giving you an option of an easy answer of, oh, you can just stay at home and make cornflakes, or you can go and you can change this system that is designed to eat people. The cornflakes sound a lot better. Yeah.
Maybe you do the cornflakes.
I see your point. I do see your point, Kelly. I saw this when I got elected and I started working with the county legislature and being on the inside of government. I didn't have sometimes the luxury that, let's say, my white male counterparts had. Some of them are retired. And so county leg is not a full-time job. It is part-time. And the majority of us legislators have a full-time job that we're doing. But if you think about going back, who was available to do these kind of positions and to be self-funded so they could be involved in government, it is not people that look like me at all. So to your point about the burnout, doing the full-time job, doing county leg, raising kids, everything else that comes with life, it is a lot of burnout. But our generation, that's what we do. But we're tired now.
Yeah.
So I see what the cool thing is. And then I'm going to bring up being an African-American female in this whole No Kings rally and seeing some of the sound bites of, hey, this is not the fight for Black people or for women or Black women. I agree with that because we have been fighting for a long time. Don't get me wrong. I don't need to generalize it. Yes, there are those that did not go out there and fight. There are those that decided to always stay on the sideline, which is fine. But as someone who was always out there, when I was living in Houston, I was out there downtown Houston after George Floyd was murdered, protesting. I was down there in Houston for the Women's March, like totally involved. But after you do it so much and you don't see the change, my sister-in-law ran for representative down there in Houston. It's you're tired. You're kind of beat down, right? So you need other people, which is so great to see with the No Kings rally out there. The volume of Americans that are out there that have never protested before is incredible. And this is why I lean towards Evan, even though there's a part of me that's like, I don't know yet, but there's a big part of me that says we're ready. We're ready because of the current movement, the groundswell in this country for better.
And I just want to bookend that. If only, and I'm going to, as a white woman, if only we had listened to all of the black women and black men who were like, hey, this is a problem. You know, why did it take that problem becoming a problem for white people for them to show up? And I'm not saying like all, you know, like obviously there is a portion of the community that is stepping up regardless, but like en masse, why is it taking this long for us to realize that what impacts my neighbor impacts me? Like this whole time, like we failed to close the loopholes in the Constitution around slavery. Slavery is still legal in the United States if you are in prison. We did not get rid of that. And so now we are all subject to getting hoovered up into one of these detention camps if, ICE decides to pick us up one day and we aren't backed by whatever legal supports are necessary to extricate us, or there's not enough people out there fighting. So, and a lot of this is, someone used the comparison to a chorus sustaining a note. Like I can only hold a note. Well, I might not be able to hold a note at all, but like theoretically, I can only hold a note for maybe 30 seconds. But if I'm there in a group, I take a breath and someone else fills in. So that's what we need to do. We need to go out there, rest, someone else goes out there.
Legislator McCoy, do you look at the No Kings rallies and say, where the hell have you been? Because I have. I've seen Kelly's, I think, well-articulated point. I've seen in the online spaces, it looks more like where the hell have you been?
Yeah.
And, a little more frustrated, like,
right.
Oh, you'll come out for this, but not that.
Right.
Do you feel that way?
In the beginning, yes. To be very honest.
But not now?
Because, again, it takes... all right, I'm gonna take it back to before I had children, right? I would see my sister-in-law, she was dealing with the kids, she was dealing with XYZ, and I'm like, God, why don't she just do this? Or why don't she just do that, right?
That we're just...
just do this, Monday morning quarterback over here. And then I had my own kids. I went through the gauntlet with having children, and I'm like, God, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know. And that's exactly how I feel about people that are now seeing what's going on with what has happened with, minorities, and it's right in front of their face.
And so you think, like, if it took this long, that's like welcome in? Or are you frustrated?
It's both.
It's both?
Yeah, it's both and. It's welcome in. Glad you finally see it. But then, God,
okay,
did it have to take this long?
Roll up the sleeves.
Yeah, get going. That's it, Kelly. It's
all the
going.
more reason that we need to fund arts education, because if we want to cultivate empathy in people so that something doesn't have to happen to them first for them to feel for their brother or sister, we could have the kids go to the theater and experience that more. Doesn't that seem like a pipe dream right now? But I don't think it is.
The artist is always going to advocate for
I'm
the
always
arts.
going to
with you there.
advocate for arts
So,
funding.
so let me just get a few emails from listeners, and then at connections@wxxi.org, and then we'll welcome a third guest on the line coming up here. Someone who's been on this program before, one of the co-founders of the some of the Democrats in the rural parts of Monroe County. Jerri Lynn Sparks has been organizing with them, and she's a former congressional press secretary. Briefly here, 3 different women right into the show saying Kamala Harris did not lose because she's a woman. She lost because of her stance on Palestine. Do you agree with that, Kelly?
I mean, if you're looking at vote totals, there is a large portion of the country that recognized that there was a genocide happening in Gaza that was being pushed. Like, that conversation wasn't allowed to happen. And it's sad seeing people not being motivated to vote because they don't see that existential threat of not voting. But also, we have to give people a reason to vote. So if I'm going to go out there and I'm on the fence, if someone is ignoring a key issue to me and I don't see my government moving and making strides to protect people, if you're saying my voice doesn't matter here, then why does my vote matter? So we have to have conversations even when they're difficult, and especially if you're going to be the president.
Okay. What do you think there, Lystra?
I would agree. It's those difficult conversations that have to come to light that we have to have. And now we are having, and now people get it. And there are a lot of American citizens that are doing a lot of work to understand and to learn what is going on and how we got here. And it's amazing. And it's extremely exciting to see, again, the dichotomy of what took you so long and welcome in. But again, we have to embrace them, and we have to allow them to learn and to move forward. It's just like with anything in life. And I understand the group of people that are like, too little, too late. I understand. They're angry, they're tired, and there will be those people, and rightly so. And they are fine having those feelings, because what matters is the groundswell of people that have jumped in and started making their voice heard about how this needs to change.
And like, blessed are the teachers who are giving us space to learn. Because, like, did you come out of the womb knowing everything that you know now?
Right.
Yeah, we're going to mess up. And if we're not messing up, we're not doing anything difficult.
Right.
So Charlie writes in to say, Evan, I do not believe this country will vote for a woman for president. I've had male friends from both conservative and liberal say there's absolutely no way they'd vote for a woman. It disgusts me. It frustrates me. I think we're stuck with this outdated thinking for a few more decades, and I hope I am wrong.
Wow.
Woof.
Why are they still your friends?
Wow. I mean, no, but well, Kelly too. I'm of the mind where it will take all different kinds of friends.
That's true.
Because we have all different kinds of people in this world. And it may take a while for them to see your side of things.
Mm-hmm.
It may take a while for you to see their side of things. But if you remain their friend, I believe within time, it'll be easier to help each other out and to see how this is affecting a particular group or in themselves.
And look at how this conversation just happened. She just flipped me from a nah to a yeah, you have a point. Look at how nice that works when we talk with one another.
Okay,
It's easy to give a flip answer, like why are they still your friends? But yes, you do have to have those conversations and challenge them. Like, what do you mean? Like, where did that idea come from?
Yeah. Let me get one more. John wants to say that he says, Evan, the irony is that I do not believe Democrats, our party, is going to put another woman forward, at least not in 2028, and we're going to miss the boat on the best candidate, Gretchen Whitmer.
I feel like they're right, sadly. And
that's from John, but go ahead.
Yeah, John, I feel like you're right. I feel like the establishment is a little bit burned from what happened with
Want
Kamala.
something, quote unquote, safe?
Yeah, they want something safe.
And John's sitting there going I think the best candidate's Gretchen Whitmer, and if you bypass her because she's not safe enough, then that's also a mistake.
That's also a mistake.
Okay.
I think that part of the problem we run into is that we have these complex systems, and that when humans think that they can like influence these complex systems, you have
Yes.
unintended consequences. Hence Donald Trump. Like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if Donald ran because he'd be easy to beat? Not so much. You kind of messed with this, factors that you didn't understand. So I think, again, the whole idea of like who's in power, the Democratic establishment, the system of consultants that decided to rein in Tim Walz when he was calling folks weird for what they were doing when what they were doing was weird. And that I think resonated with lots of people. And then all of a sudden it was kind of like a more buttoned up version of Tim Walz. They didn't let Tim be Tim, and they kind of restrained Kamala too. Like this amount of control that they put on candidates, because like you have to follow this very narrow line, they lose their humanity and their connection to the American people that might drive more votes. Like I would rather have an imperfect but honest person. I know that sounds like a crazy idea to have an honest person running for office, but like you lose bits of your integrity when you go through this process at that higher level, because these consultants and things decide that your image should be honed a certain way.
It's financial.
Yeah.
It's financial. It's again, if we go back to the whole money in politics, it's financial. It takes a lot to run for office.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot to reach people. It takes a lot to travel, to speak. It takes a lot, and it requires a lot. So the people that are going to fund that,
Mm-hmm.
they may not say they want something in return, but it's kind of understood.
Now they think they're licensed to bring in the consultants and tell you what to say and not
Exactly.
say. Yeah. So we have to take our only break of the hour. We're going to come back with we'll welcome in a third guest. We've got Kelly Cheatle, an artist and community organizer, with us. Legislator Lystra McCoy from District Number 18 in the Monroe County Legislature. And we'll come right back with Jerri Lynn Sparks, a former congressional press secretary, on Connections.
Support for your public radio station comes from our members and from Bob Johnson Auto Group, believing an informed public makes for a stronger community. Proud supporter of Connections with Evan Dawson, focused on the news, issues, and trends that shape the lives of listeners in the Rochester and Finger Lakes regions. BobJohnsonAutoGroup.com. And Excelis Blue Cross Blue Shield, providing members with options for in-person and virtual care, creating ways to connect to care when and where it's needed. Learn more at excelisbcbs.com.
This is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. I want to bring in on the line Jerri Lynn Sparks, who my first conversation with Jerri was years ago, way back when Jerri was working for Eric Massa in Congress. She had some very hard jobs in Washington. Wrote a book about some of her experience. Grew up in North Carolina, understands sort of rural American politics, and has done some Democratic organizing in rural parts of Monroe County. And Jerri's on the line with us. Welcome back to the show, Jerri.
Thanks for having me.
So just briefly, I know you're popping in late here, and I know you've heard some of what has been discussed, but I just want to kind of get your quick takes on this. Are we focusing too much on the question of gender, and do you think that is a valid question for Democrats as they move toward 2028?
So I think that you're right. We are focusing too much on the idea of having a woman president just to have a woman president. And that's not what we need. We need someone who is elected based on their skills. And there's many talented women out there. I think what happened, if you'll allow me to do a little deconstruction of what happened with Kamala Harris, she tried to skip to the front of the line. She didn't win a primary. She wasn't popular. And at the end of the day, what is any election? Any election as a president, especially at the presidential level, is a popularity contest. Doesn't mean she didn't have the resume for it. It just meant that winning the primary is what tells the people that this person is electable. This person is wanted by the public. And she did very well. And I think in my lifetime, we will see a woman president, but not because she's a woman. We need to move away from the concept of idealization over the reality of what we're looking at. And we keep doing that. Hillary Clinton, everyone said it felt like, this is her right. This is the next thing in her ascendancy. And she wasn't that popular because of some of the personality characteristics. And, you know, George Bush, people elected him because they said he's who you want to have a beer with. You want to have him in your backyard.
I mean, I just say,
barbecue.
I'm not saying ugh to George Bush. I'm just saying I hear that phrase so often in politics, Jerry. Over the years, I'm like, we still are stuck on who we're having a beer with.
So at the end of the day, it's relatability. Obama won because, my God, what a great, relatable person he is. He's authentic. I heard one of your callers talking about someone who's honest. I honestly feel like Obama's just being himself. Like, is he clever? He's a lawyer? Yes, he is. But I always get the feeling that this man is so confident he doesn't have to hide behind the policy wonks that tell him what to think, what to believe. He is what he thinks and what he believes, and that's why he ran. And that's the kind of authenticity that I feel like we need. I love Gretchen Whitmer. I think she's fantastic. And I've said on your program before, the best presidents are governors. Mm-hmm. They know how to run a budget. A state is a mini federal model. Like, you know how to run a budget. You know how to be the one in charge, to make decisions, and to have accountability. And we're always do better. Bill Clinton was a great president in many policy ways. In some ways he failed, but he was a governor. Those make the best presidents.
Well, okay, so let me get back to some feedback here for all of our guests to jump in on. First of all, Luis writes to say, Evan, I have 6 sisters and other female relatives in all age ranges. They support both parties. They've told me that they would not support a female president. It's just not for a woman, they say. I don't get it, but what can I say? That's from Luis. Luis, I can't imagine that's representative of the full population of people, but that is one person's experience, and I appreciate the feedback. And a question from a listener. Kara wants to know why we're not talking about AOC more. She said, I love AOC. I want her to stay in Congress. I don't think she could win in the South or in purple states, but I think she's great. So she wants to know why we're not talking about AOC more. Kelly, should we be talking more about AOC?
I think we should be talking about lots of people.
Okay.
It's what year is it?
Right.
2026.
2026. Why are we like crowning Gavin Newsom? Like, it's 2026. The first primary isn't for how long? We should be talking about everybody who is of the caliber, the resume, the whatever, to take on the next president. Let these folks be vetted, because if we didn't learn any, Jerri was mentioning, like the fact that Kamala skipped the primary process. Like,
and I don't think that's her fault, by the way, because President Biden wanted to stay in this thing till well after it was pretty clear that it wasn't going to work.
There's lots of and even now with Trump and Vance, are they trying to hold on to Trump so he makes to the 2-year mark so that way Vance could theoretically be there for 10 years? Like, were they trying to slip Kamala through by making her the vice president who then became president and then you're the incumbent? I'm not going to Monday morning quarterback or try and figure out who thought this was a good idea and what plan. Again, complex systems. If we're trying to mess with them, we're going to have unintended consequences. Let the process play out. Let's see who's raising their hand and say, yes, I'm in, or I'm considering it. Let them float their test bubbles. Let them have conversations on news programs that are actually substantive so that we can hear how their brain works. How do they respond to things under stress? How do they respond to the needs of people? Do they recognize that people are human beings that are flawed and beautiful and need help sometimes? Who are they? We don't know who they are beyond what their marketing images are.
So there's time, and we'll be talking. So, but the listener said AOC. So Lystra to Kara wants to know about AOC.
I love AOC. I do. I want her to be in Senate, actually. But if anything that the DNC showed us, I had the privilege of being able to go, the amount of amazing young, up-and-coming Democratic leaders that we have is just, we have a whole bench full. And I agree, Kelly, we need to discuss all of them. Jasmine Crockett, like all of them. There are so many around the country, and there are so many different races that were won around the country that I'm sure we haven't talked about. I believe there was a race in Georgia that just happened at the end of last year. It was a first female I don't know if it was, I cannot remember the position. I don't want to get it wrong, but there are so many people out there that we need to continue to look, the Democratic Party needs to make sure that they're looking at all of those people that were pulled in when we had the DNC and that came and spoke at the DNC. There's a lot of them.
I have a couple of emails from people saying, similar to what we just heard in studio, be patient and don't anoint yet. Don't anoint Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
So Jerri Sparks, if you were still advising people, if you were advising campaigns the way maybe you used to, would you tell them, step aside, Gavin Newsom's got this wrapped up?
Yeah, I don't think that Gavin Newsom should be anointed. Nothing against Gavin Newsom, but California's already going to go Democrat. You don't gain anything by having him be the candidate. He's not bringing a state. Of course, Al Gore didn't carry Tennessee either. But I don't think that he has enough broad appeal. I like that he's taking it to Trump. I like he's got that strength of character. But can I just go back to a couple of more assessments on Kamala? One of the things I joined your program late today because I had an appointment. But when I heard that she was the choice, I called my friend who I worked with in Congress, Donna McLean, and I said, we just lost the election. I said the same thing with Hillary, and it's not because I don't think women can win. I don't think those were the right two candidates. Hillary more than Kamala, just because of this primary being your muscle. You got to work that out. But Kamala's campaign focused highly on abortion, and I'm like, oh, what a great way to win by across the aisle bipartisan support. What you need to do to win by focus on what they consider killing babies. That is not a positive message. Bill Clinton won on that famous line, "Is the economy stupid?" And that's what really happens to voters. They really have a hard time identifying with something unless it hits them personally. What hits us all personally? The ability to have housing and food. That's the economy. And she didn't focus enough on that. And identity politics is what's killing the Democratic Party.
Well, say more about that. What do you mean that identity politics is killing the party?
So everyone talks about the first woman to do this, first, identity group to do this, or just looking at anything that has to do with social things that really I don't think maybe belong at the federal level to the intensity that they are now. I know that we need to have some protections. Absolutely. I'm all for that. But the thing you need to focus on is the purpose of government is what? What is the purpose of government? Do Democrats really have a different definition of what the purpose of government is? I think your voters have shown repeatedly they don't want war and they want to have a good economy. Those are the two things. And Trump is failing on both of those, by the way.
Well, certainly what's really interesting, if you look at the way Trump polls, his strongest issues a year and a half ago when he was winning the election were immigration, which has collapsed among independents who've been horrified by what they see by ICE, and on the economy, which has collapsed in huge numbers. Really only sort of the MAGA core is still with him in most cases now. So the door is open. In general, Kelly, do you agree with Jerri that it's can you get housing? Can you get food? Focus on the economy, focus on human needs there.
I think for someone to have the capacity to consider things beyond their household, they have to have their basic needs met. And we are denying the basic needs of people. So if I'm worried about staying alive, how can I consider something beyond that? So, So it does come down to this sort of meta economy version. I would say even just, are your basic needs being met? Mm-hmm. Are we free in America if I cannot get sick and not be certain that I will have a house? Am I free in America if I lose my job and I'm not going to have a place to be?
If I slip on a patch of ice and break my leg, am I going bankrupt?
Am I going bankrupt? Mm-hmm. And if Lystra is not free, if you're not free, am I free? So if you can't deal with those basic needs, how am I supposed to think about the high and I would argue that the need to be recognized as a trans person, as a person, is a basic need. But again, if that's not something that my impacts me directly, even though it does impact me directly because of family. If that's not in my bubble, and I'm got this bubble really tight to my person at the moment because I'm fearful for I think is the key word, because I'm afraid for my basic existence. How can my heart grow 3 sizes to include more people? And that's by design. Like, if we are fearful, if we are afraid, then we don't care for people outside of our bubbles.
Well, in our last 90 seconds, I got to be real quick here. So, Jerry, about 30 seconds here. The panel talked earlier about how President Trump last week, and we're going to talk about this soon, said, we can't pay for daycare. We can't cover all of Medicare and Medicaid. That should be up to the states. We're busy with the military. I mean, that's going to be in a lot of Democratic ads, as you know, Jerri Lynn Sparks. But for the listeners like John, who said, hey, as a Democrat, don't make this about identity so much that you won't select a woman if a woman is the most viable candidate, and in his words, it was Gretchen Whitmer. But regardless, do you think the party will choose not to try a glass ceiling candidate just because of fear, Jerry?
Yeah, I think that they've been burned twice. I think Whitmer is a great candidate. I think Elise Slotkin would be a fantastic candidate. Andy Beshear would be a great candidate, but I think the Democratic Party needs to do some real numbers. It's a popularity contest, and fear is one of the things. Safety is what people care about. Who is going to make you feel safe and that they can improve the economy as a governor? So it could be Whitmer, it could be Andy Beshear. Should be a governor.
Okay, so Jerry wants a governor. Lystra hasn't decided yet, but
I've not. Again, a qualified individual.
A qualified
individual. And Jerry, I will say, I had the same gut feeling as you when it was announced that Kamala was going to be the next person nominated.
You felt fearful that was going to be a loss?
I felt it was a loss.
And
as a black female, I was like, oh, God, we just lost.
Kamala Harris has said she's considering running again. What do you think, legislator? Do you want her?
I think she should.
But go through the primary process just like everybody else?
Exactly, just like everyone else. Again, there's a lot of good people there.
So the panel says no anointing.
And I think that the people are going to save us, not the president. So take care of your neighbor.
I agree.
Kelly Cheatle, thank you for being here, artist and organizer. Legislator McCoy from District Number 18, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And Jerri Lynn Sparks, so we'll get you a full hour next time, former Congressional Press Secretary. Thanks for being on, Jerry.
Yeah, thank you. Happy Easter.
And to you as well. And more connections coming up in just a moment.
This program is a production of WXXI Public Radio. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of this station, its staff, management, or underwriters. The broadcast is meant for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or use in another medium without expressed written consent of WXXI is strictly prohibited. Connections with Evan Dawson is available as a podcast. Just click on the Connections link at WXXInews.org.